Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Casey Kane, what's up, my man?
Hey.
How you doing, bro?
Oh, I'm good.
I appreciate you carving out some time here. We can kick this off if you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. Let's roll.
I'm trying to load up that content, bro.
Oh, let's load it up. Let's go.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for downloading another fantastic episode of the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and on today's episode, I'm bringing back my good friend Casey Kane to the show. This is a little bonus episode for the the fourth season of the CherryPickin podcast. So we thought, why not go out with a bang? I want my friend Casey Kane to hop on here. He's a good friend of the show, and it's always a good time when we have you, Casey. So I just want to say thank you for hopping on the mic today.
Yeah, man. What do you want to talk about? What's on your mind?
So I think today, we'll free flow certainly and just have some fun, but why not, why don't we kick this off and talk about the college football playoffs, talk about the college football championship game, and more specifically, we've got the Alabama versus Georgia matchup in the finals coming up here on the 10th. So I thought, why not, we'll just talk a little college football, we'll kick this off and then just see where it goes from there. Does that sound good?
Let's ride.
All right. So I didn't get a chance to watch much of either of the games in the semifinals, but because I was actually traveling for work, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later on. But we've got a big time matchup on the 10th. We got Alabama versus Georgia. This is a rematch from a few weeks ago when Alabama and Georgia met in the SEC championship game. Casey, coming into this matchup for the finals, we've got number 1 Alabama. We've got number 3 Georgia in the playoffs. And so this is a SEC rematch, so to speak. But just to give you a little bit of a background on these two teams here, Alabama will be playing in its 13th college football playoff matchup when the Crimson Tide meets Georgia this upcoming weekend. Bama is 9-3 all time in the college football playoff game since the playoffs inception in 2014. And Alabama is the only team to appear in 7 of 8 playoffs. So we're talking like a dynasty at Alabama. And I know this isn't the first time people are hearing that phrase thrown out for Alabama, but when you look just specifically at the college football playoffs, that's crazy that they are the only team to appear in 7 of the 8 playoffs since its inception, man. That's insane.
It's also just been so dominated by the SEC. It feels like, forget the Power 5. Cincinnati getting a shake in there for the first time in non-Power 5. It's not even going to be like, it's just all SEC and maybe Ohio State.
I know there was a big deal made and a big focus this year on Cincinnati. It's a group of 5 team. I think they were deserving to get in, but it's like when we really get down to brass tacks, it's like the SEC just runs this. ACC, Clemson, when they were up, made it competitive as well. They won some national championships, but outside of the SEC, maybe Ohio State, they've won one since the inception, but yeah, it really is SEC dominated. Alabama dominates this, and they have a great opportunity to win another championship again. In fact, they will try to win its second national title in a row. So they won it last year. They're trying to win it a second time this year, and it would be the 4th in 8 seasons of the college football playoff format. So, that's pretty impressive if you ask me.
Nick Saban's insane because he came to Alabama in 2007. And after the 06 season, that was the last time that Alabama had a losing record. They have not had a losing record since 2007. Think of how much the world has changed since 2007. Let alone, in 07, they went 7-6, Nick Saban's first year. Then after that, they haven't had more than 3 losses in a season since. It's ridiculous what he's been able to do in such a quick turnaround, taking over for Mike Shula in 07 And then he just became the greatest college football coach that ever lived since then. And no one's going to be able to get in his way. Alabama, I mean, you can play the tape back from when we previewed the college football playoff championship. I've made a lot of wrong predictions, but it was really easy to predict that Alabama was going to steamroll Cincinnati.
I still think a 2-loss Bama probably still would have gotten in somehow, but they won. They did what they had to do, and then they beat the brakes off of Georgia, 41-24.
And they're going to beat the brakes off of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't know that one's going to be cute at all. I mean, that could be a pretty big win. I'm thinking
that's going to be a game you stop watching in the second half.
My prediction would be Bama probably 53, Cincinnati 13 or something like that.
Cincinnati's going to get steamrolled, and I hate to say it because I love the underdogs, but the much more intriguing matchup is going to be Georgia-Michigan. Cincinnati struggled to not really dominate Houston in their conference championship game. And on the flip side, Alabama destroyed Georgia. And, the writing was on the wall that was going to be a blowout. And honestly, if you look at the SEC championship game, this is just a rematch of that. I don't think fans who want excitement in the playoff, which they haven't been able to get since, it's been a while since there's been an exciting, college football national championship, a lot of blowouts. I think, again, it's going to be one of those games where it's like Alabama probably going to be the national champion by halftime.
Oh, man, that's a pretty bold prediction. But you called it in that episode a few weeks back, Casey. And, honestly, I can't say that you're wrong with this prediction, to be honest. I mean, I'm fully expecting I hope Georgia can figure out and learn from their mistakes from a few weeks ago or a month ago when they played Alabama in the SEC championship game. But if I'm being honest with myself, like what's actually going to happen, I'm probably getting ready to watch Alabama win a second national championship in a row this weekend. So it's like we can throw out all the numbers and throw out all these stats that are really impressive, like Georgia's defense is the best in college football. But when they played Alabama a month or so ago, it didn't really matter. I mean, it did not matter against Alabama. It's like Alabama had their number and they were just waiting for this game to embarrass Georgia, because that's what it was. It was an embarrassment. I can't say that you're wrong, Casey. I really can't. And I don't know what I'll do if Bama wins again, man.
I mean, Bama won the college. This is going to be a rematch of and correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to be a rematch of the 2017 college football national championship, which was, Georgia, Alabama with Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. And that was actually a pretty close game. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do remember that one, Casey. So Georgia, they were number 3 in 2017. They actually had an exciting game against Oklahoma. Oklahoma was the number 2 game in the semifinals. That game went to 2 overtimes. That was 54-48. I believe Georgia was like blowing the brakes off of Oklahoma. Oklahoma came back, made it a game. And then, so Georgia, they get by narrowly, and then they lost to the number 4 seeded Alabama. So Bama wasn't even the number 1 seed. I think Notre Dame may have been number 1 that year. And they lost to Bama in overtime in the national championship game. It was like 26-23. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, 2017 season, Alabama still went 13-1, and it was another dominant year. I don't think Notre Dame was in the mix that year. That was Georgia, Oklahoma, and Clemson, along with the Crimson Tide in 2017. But there's been a lot of blowouts in the national championship since then, and that was really the closest one. Since then it's been, Clemson actually blowing out Alabama a year later. Yeah. You got to give Bama a chance to reload a little bit. So that's a little understandable. Then, Bama wasn't even in the national championship picture the following year when LSU under Ed Ogeron won it all. And, now this is the second year in a row. Bama is expected to not only win the national championship, but it's expected to be another lopsided victory, I think, for the Crimson Tide.
I've seen on social media where people are looking at the viewership numbers this year compared to last year. The viewership numbers are down by I want to say 4 million for each of the semifinal games this year.
Wow.
And of course, you can say some of that may have been attributed in 2020. I'm talking about it may have been attributed to the fact that we were all locked inside during the pandemic. So the numbers were high.
Yeah.
But there is a decline this year with the semifinal games, viewership numbers. I would probably expect there would be a decline for this game, even though it is the national championship game. You got Georgia, Alabama. I think if you're a college football fan, that's probably on a Monday, I guess, is the 10th, I would think. You're probably going to watch the game, turn it on, just check it out. Maybe a casual fan may do that, but it doesn't make me excited to watch Alabama. Like Georgia, I'm hoping they can do it, and maybe I'll peep out, the first few quarters of the game. If it gets lopsided like you're saying it would be, I don't know that I would stick around for the entire game because I'm just tired of seeing Alabama win, man.
Yeah, and I mean, one cool thing about these national championship games, and even if you don't, even if you know that it's going to be a blowout, or even if it ends up being a blowout, one thing to pay close attention to is the plethora of players on the field that are going to be playing on Sunday the next year. Bama's quarterback, he's not going to be on Sunday next year simply because he's, not eligible. But, you look at a guy like Devonta Smith last year, who plays in your neck of the woods, Philadelphia now. I mean, that was exciting to see, what he was made of in the national championship game last year. Is there any players on both sides of the ball, Georgia or Alabama, who you think will be making a mark in the pros next year?
I mean, for sure, I could probably say that there's going to be some playmakers from Georgia's defense that'll be in the NFL next year. I mean, just looking solely at the stats, Georgia's defense has been dominant all season. So there's some playmakers, in the secondary and the linebacking core that may make an impact at the college or the pro level rather. And then, I mean, you could probably pick a handful of players from Alabama that will be going to the pros. I think that they got some studs in the secondary for Alabama that may be making an impact.
Jordan Battle comes to mind.
Yeah.
Do you like watching him play?
I do. I mean, I think he's a great player on the college level. Would be excited to see what he can do in the pro level, see how his game would translate to that next level, but fundamentally sound. I mean, he impresses me a lot.
Yeah, because that's really, as a fan, this is what you got to be looking for, is almost like, who's my team going to draft at this point out of this national championship game? Because nobody prepares players for the professional ranks like Nick Saban. And that's all, that's what I'm going to be really interested in, is looking at, who's the potential, whose draft stock is going to rise in this Alabama-Georgia game, because I don't think it's going to be close. I think what Alabama did to them in the SEC championship is simply going to be like watching a rerun.
Yeah. So in that matchup, I mean, Georgia got spanked pretty good. I think it was like 41-24 in that game against Alabama in the SEC championship game. Up to that point, Georgia was just blowing the brakes off of teams, dominant defense, offense looked good. And the fact that Alabama came in, put up 41 points. Georgia's defense averages like under 10 points per game. So Alabama came in, put 41 on the board, held the potent Georgia offense, which has been pretty explosive this year, to only 24 points. It's like, God damn. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban has the blueprint, had their number from the beginning. I would be shocked if Georgia makes the changes that they need to make to beat Alabama or to make it closer, because, I mean, that's just total domination. You're right. I mean, Alabama had their number dead to rights, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's a repeat of what we saw. As much as my heart wants Georgia to win, I don't know if my head will allow that,
Yeah, it's going to be more of the same, I think, in Indianapolis on Monday night, because, it might have been interesting had some of those scenarios played out where Alabama wouldn't have been in the national championship, because, they almost almost losing to, I believe, what was it, Arkansas? They almost lost.
Yeah, they almost lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. If you remember that, that was like
That's right. That's the other one.
overtimes,
Yeah.
man. But
That was a big.
Arkansas was a week before, so like they had two
Yeah.
close calls. But the Auburn one, they were looking like they would have been out, eliminated.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what a playoff would have been like without Bama, because then it kind of would have been a little bit more up for grabs. But I'm looking for excitement, and I want to be optimistic and say it's going to be a good game. But when it comes to it, January 10th, Lucas Oil Stadium, I still just don't see Alabama running away with this one. Even though the way Georgia handled Michigan was pretty severe. Like Georgia, I'm not trying to take anything away from Georgia, but they come out of a different kind of area than Michigan does, right? The SEC is clearly the best conference, and the Big Ten for a while hung in there, but when you talk about adding teams like Maryland and Rutgers, while they're adding those teams, the SEC is adding Texas A&M. The SEC is
like
adding,
blue bloods.
Yeah, so Big Ten is adding teams that might look good on television, because you get the different Washington D.C. and New Jersey, New York markets, because you add those teams, but they are not improving the level of play. And what the SEC expansion has just turned the SEC into such a juggernaut of a conference, and it's going to continue as Texas and Oklahoma will join the mix shortly.
We grew up in the Midwest, of course. Big respect to the Big Ten in that area. Certainly, we want to see teams like Ohio State, Michigan represent, because those historically have been the better teams. Michigan got a shot to crack at it. I thought Michigan would put up a better effort, but Georgia just dominated them. I mean, you called it. The Georgia defense held the Michigan ground game, which has been potent all year, to under 100 yards for the day. Georgia's defense had 3 turnovers on Michigan for the day. Stetson Bennett, the quarterback for Georgia, he had like 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. So like, it's not even the same level. Like it's not, it's unfair. And it's like, we're going to see this every year. As long as Nick Saban is at Alabama, they've got a shot every year. Georgia, I'm glad that they are kind of fresh in the mix, but if I'm being honest, like, this could be ugly, dude.
Look, success breeds success. It's cool to go to Alabama right now. It's cool to play in the SEC. Young kids coming out of high school, they don't want to go to Nebraska anymore. They don't want to play in the highest tier talent is not going to the Big Ten, unless sometimes if it's in the programs in their backyard. But when you're talking about a 5-star recruit that can go anywhere and have his pick of the litter, he's not looking at the Big Ten programs like he's looking at the SEC programs, because by this time, Alabama's been Nick Saban's been at Alabama since 2006. So young high school players, all they know is Nick Saban in Alabama running the show. That's what they've grown up with now. That's how long Nick Saban's been dominant. And that's how long SEC football has just been crazy more dominant than any other conference. These kids who grew up watching football before they go to football practice or before they play on Friday nights, they have only seen SEC and Alabama domination. And, there was a little fight in Clemson for a while. So I even though Clemson was down, I don't expect them to be down for very long. But yeah, I mean, kids growing up, when they have their pick of the litter, they're going to want to go to what they've seen dominate on TV, because that's what's cool. And the SEC has never been hotter, and Alabama at the top of all of that.
And one other thing I'll add there. So like when I was being recruited, like as a junior in high school to go to football, different football universities and schools and programs, like when you go in for like a junior day, for instance, you're there with other prep athletes, and the coaches will say to you, and Randy Walker actually said this to me and like the group that I was with at Northwestern, how many of you want to go to the NFL? And everybody's hands shot through the roof. Like they shot up. And he was like, well, we'll get you there. Like if you want to play in the NFL, you want to play the next level, come to Northwestern. Chicago's Big Ten team, Northwestern. Now, Northwestern for a while has been a laughingstock of the Big Ten. Certainly when Coach Walker was there. Like, it's gotten better. But like, if you're going to an SEC program and Nick Saban is saying that to you, you believe him because you've seen the players that have gone to the NFL that he's taken to the next level. I mean, there's a ton of players in the NFL from Alabama. So if you get an opportunity to go to any school and you're being recruited by Nick Saban, Alabama, I would be hard pressed to go anywhere else. If this guy's the coach, that's the program, he will get you there. And I believe him. You know what I mean?
And not only that, the level of talent that's surrounding you every single week for 4 years of your life while you're, if you went the full 4 years while you're playing football there, I mean, it's ridiculous. If you want to run fast, you run with fast people. No one's faster. No one's more athletic. And no one's more NFL ready than the Alabama Crimson Tide and a lot of the SEC programs. Not all the SEC programs are on Alabama's level, but year in, year out, there's about 4 or 5 programs that can hang with Bama in that conference. And so you want to be playing against and playing with at practice the best of the best. And yeah, you're going to see some outliers that can get to the NFL by playing at a North Dakota State or, whatever school Carson Wentz came out of, and those outlier individual athletes that do play at a low tier college and come into the pros. But if you're playing the percentages, your best percentage of getting to the show is, I would think, playing against the best of the best and proving that you can be on the field, against all that talent. The only thing I'll say is a rebuttal on what I just said is now programs, the only thing that they can step out that Alabama can't say really is, hey, you're going to get a chance to play here. You're going to get a chance to see action, because in Bama, you might be a stud high school athlete with size, speed, and agility, but because there's so much talent already there, you might not see the playing field. So that's the only argument I think that these lower tier programs can still float recruits away and have an advantage over Alabama.
And I feel like if you were the type of athlete getting recruited by Bama, I mean, I would think that they're going for impact players, or they're going for players that have a high ceiling. But I would think, I mean, I'm certainly not, a recruit. I would think that you would be realistic with yourself as to when you expect a player. If you think you legitimately have a shot to make it on that roster, I mean, you make a good point, but I would still be hard pressed to turn down an offer from Nick Saban,
For sure.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Alabama doesn't put up a good fight like they did a few weeks ago or a month ago against Georgia. I'm expecting domination, just like you are. Casey, throw out a prediction, I guess, score-wise, what you're thinking.
I'm going to go Alabama 41, Georgia 21. That's a 20-point victory I'm calling out. And Georgia, if I'm seeing this right, Georgia right now is favored by 2.5. We don't encourage, people gambling too much on this podcast, but my goodness, I'm looking at that Georgia by 2.5 plus 2.5. I mean, Georgia minus 2.5. My goodness. I mean, I think Alabama's going to be able to handle the Bulldogs. I think they're going to be able to handle them quite easily. I do not seeing it being as close of a game as those in Las Vegas are predicting.
I'm going to go Alabama 48, Georgia 32. I think it might be a little closer than that, but I'm still expecting some domination by Bama. I want Georgia to win. I hope they can put it together. I mean, from what we've seen of them all season, they've been a dominant team. They've just handled themselves well throughout the season. But Bama is that true test. And if they can come back and win, I mean, I'll be excited for that. But I got to be honest with myself. And I think you're right, Casey. It could be a blowout at the hands of Bama. But we'll see.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to have you on, talk a little bit of college football. Thank you for hopping on the mic here. I appreciate your thoughts and your input on college football. It should be an exciting game this upcoming weekend. I hope everybody at home gets a chance to watch that game and enjoy it with your friends and family. We're getting out of the holiday season here, but we've got one last thing from 2021 to look forward to in the beginning part of 2022 with the College Football Championship game. So, Casey, thank you, my man, for hopping on the mic. Where can people find you?
Sure. You can find me at KC Talks Life on Twitter, or my company is Clear Contender Media. So that's at Clear Contender or clearcontender.com.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. Hope you have a good one. Talk to you soon. Peace. See you for season 5 of Cherry Pickin'. Thank you, everybody. Peace. As much as my heart wants Georgia to win, I don't know if my head will allow that. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.